The episode 3 has an interesting discourse, to the point that the review for this episode will be a fairly short one. The most interesting part of the conversation requires its own dedicated video to go beyond the qualities of the episode and the two plot lines it contains. The episode succeeds at starting, developing, and giving a nice ending to a relationship with two contrasting but fairly complementary personalities. This plotline starts at the beginning of the outbreak. Everybody gets evacuated from their homes to be transported to the quarantine zones, or killed if there is no more space in the QCs. Now, what does the concept of a quarantine zone being full means? Or why didn't the military just establish those quarantine zones in the towns and suburbs instead of moving full populations, and how many people got killed? All of this sounds not all that functional. Aside for that, we get introduced to the character we will be following most of the runtime in this episode. Bill, preparing the terrain and getting ready for his new life in the apocalypse, in a way we haven't seen yet. He takes it pretty well. Eventually, one day, Bill meets Frank in a pretty good back and forth, and so it begins the focus of most of this episode. This plotline lasts around 45 minutes in an hour and 20 minute long episode. It is pretty well made, beautifully shot, well developed, with not many issues, and most of the interesting points of conversation are better served in its own dedicated video. The rest of the episode is kinda clunky. Joel is in his mid-50s and he acts in an oddly immature way, and also disregards Ellie's safety. No biggie, Ellie herself disregards Ellie's own safety, going to a dark spooky area she doesn't know by herself, an area Joel didn't find before, somehow, in a really odd and far-fetched way to get to this scene.
You're not immune from being ripped apart. You understand? It's important. I'm trying to keep you alive.
Their banter is also pretty off this time around. A joke from the previous episode is repeated in this one, but with the new context, its usage feels very strange and out of character.
There's not gonna be anything bad in here?
Just you.
Oh, funny. Is there anything bad in here?
Just you.
Ah, getting funnier.
Bellerance's acting also takes a turn for the worse, which now makes me believe her performance heavily depends on who's directing her, or a coin flip, who knows. There is also a scene in the latter part of the episode almost taken straight from the game, but with a different context that makes this scene work less well.
Hey, look, about Tess. I don't even know what
Here's how this thing's gonna play out. You don't bring up Tess. Ever. Matter of fact, we just keep our histories to ourselves. Secondly, don't tell anybody about your condition. They think you're crazy, they'll try to kill you. And lastly, you do what I say when I say it. We clear?
Sure.
Repeat it.
What you say goes.
It is not the biggest deal, it is only a few words that felt purposeful in the game, and do not fit quite well here. It does mark a change of dynamic between Joel and Ellie from this point on. The episode ends with Joel and Ellie getting all the supplies they can, Ellie taking a gun without Joel's knowledge, and both of them getting on a truck prepared by Bill and continuing to their next goal, going to Wyoming to find Tommy. This episode was good, 3 out of 4. And now, on to the next one. Episode 4 starts with Ellie playing with a gun she got, while Joel collects gas for the truck. The banter is already better than it was in the previous episode. The dynamic between the characters, their tone towards the other, and even the timing and the editing helps to capture better chemistry and more comprehensive interactions. Add to this Bellerance's performance getting a better shot this time, and quite a few plot points that will add lots of character development, resulting in a better display of these characters than in the previous episode. It's not all perfect, If it's going on the same direction of the game, it feels like the dynamic between the characters is rushing a little, maybe to account for the lack of screen time in the previous episode. Also, Joel is uncharacteristically open sometimes about personal stuff. After just an episode and a half ago, he said this.
So, you two,
Pass.
how'd you end up in Boston?
Pass. No more questions about me.
And at the end of the last episode, he said this.
Rule 1, you don't bring up Tess. Ever. Matter of fact, we can just keep our histories to ourselves.
What's his name?
Whose name?
Your brother.
Tommy.
Younger or older?
Younger.
Why isn't he with you?
Long story.
Is it longer than 25 hours?
Tommy's what we used to call a joiner. Dreams of becoming a hero. Cut to 12 years later, outbreak happens. He convinces me to join a group making their way up to Boston. That's where we met Tess.
He technically told Ellie she could not bring up Tess, but it is not a loophole. It is just weird. But in general, it is a big improvement nonetheless. The plotline for this episode is fairly simple. Joel and Ellie drive on their way to Wyoming while having some bonding moments during the travel. A blocked tunnel forces Joel to look for an alternative route. And while doing this, they find another quarantine zone. One that has been taken over and gets received by an ambush, forcing them to leave the truck. In the confrontation, Joel orders Ellie to go to a safe area and defends himself against the attackers, then gets taken by surprise by another guy he could not hear, prompting Ellie to use the gun, and starts the best scene in the entire episode. After taking care of the guy and having an exchange about what happened, they search for a high building they can use to scan the city for a way out. Joel decides they will sleep inside that building, and they get caught by these two guys. In the middle of the episode, the people who took over the quarantine zone are introduced, as well as this. And that's pretty much it. The episode is 45 minutes long, short and straightforward just like the second one, and very effective with the time it has. Reservations aside, most of the issues I have with the episode are pretty small, all things considered. No awkward scenes for the most part, no unbelievably far-fetched situations, no gamey moments, and it might have the best scene in the show so far. I do have a few issues though. In a couple of scenes, Ellie's mind state is a bit tough to follow, and again, it feels like their relationship is being rushed, just a little. That being said, this is the first 4 out of 4 in this season. Oddly enough, I still prefer episode 2, this whole thing aside, but in terms of consistency and issues, this is the most solid so far. It also hints to a few things for the next episode. Finally, episode 5. I don't like episode 5 that much. It is hard for me to separate the game from the show, and in this case, there's quite a lot that is different, or worst, and it is really hard to differentiate which moments are which. That being said, I do have a set of complaints that stand regardless of a comparison with the game. We'll get to that in a moment. The plot here is less straightforward than in the previous episode, although the concept is pretty simple. Henry went to Joel because he saw what Joel was capable of. The team needs to get out of the city. Henry knows a way, and Joel can keep that way safe. They go through the tunnels, which leads them to...
Keep it down, we're not out yet.
Oh, come on. Can we just rest here for a while?
Out of the tunnels and almost out of the city, the team encounters a sniper. Joel takes the sniper down, but...
Anthony, hold them where they are. We're almost there.
Joel manages to snipe the main truck, but the militia catches up with the rest of the team. The leader of the militia has a back and forth with Henry, and right when she's about to execute him, the ground collapses for whatever reason, setting an entire horde of infected free. This is the timeline. When Joel snipes the driver, the truck drives off-road and crashes into this house. Crashing into stuff is what this truck is made for.
There's cars everywhere.
Why do you think you're in front?
But for some reason this causes enough damage to create a leak. It'd be awkward if fire just appeared out of nowhere, so truck go boom. Now, it is unclear that the explosion caused the collapse. In fact, that doesn't look to be the case. Nevertheless, the ground collapses, the infected go out, and get Ellie, Sam and Henry out of that situation for the reenactment of that scene from the game, and also wipe out this entire faction. Let's continue though. Joel tries to clear the way for Ellie, and she does her best saving Henry and Sam, and the group manages to escape. And the group manages to escape the area and find a place to spend the night. Ellie reading comics for Sam until Henry tells them to sleep. After a moment, Sam reveals to Ellie that he is infected. Ellie tries to do something about it and hopes for the best. In the next morning, Henry kills Sam and finally himself. Joel and Ellie bury the bodies and both walk away, continuing their path. This episode is not bad, but it does have some jarring elements. Let's start for the most present one. In the previous episode, we got introduced to the faction that is now running the quarantine zone and hunting down federal collaborators, as well as their leader. They were odd, but in the previous episode we saw so little of them that it was pointless to try to make a solid take on them. That has changed now. They are really not great. Starting by the leader, who feels way too frail to lead any resistance, while also not showing why she, of all people, is in charge. This is not just a casting issue, this is also a writing issue. In most of the scenes, she seems to be making erratic choices, and no scene displays why she is actually respected. And no, she being the sister of the previous leader is not a good explanation. The scenes to counterbalance the ones in which her leadership seems contentious just don't exist. We are just told,
"Your brother was a great man. We all loved him. He didn't change anything. You did. We're with you."
Find every collaborator and kill them all. Okay, I want our people going door to door until we find him.
Now,
Oh, I'm sorry. How long do you think we should wait?
and she's also a borderline cartoon villain.
When you're done, burn the bodies. It's faster. Well, kids die, Henry. They die all the time.
Other than that, the characters of Henry and Sam are pretty good. They are a lot different to the game versions, making it hard to make a call on which one is better. I like the game versions more, due to their dynamic with Joel and Ellie. It felt like Ellie and Sam had a lot more interesting and varied interactions there, for example. But you know, this version isn't bad, and at least it leverages the changes for different interactions. All that aside, the episode works fine, Henry and Sam are good, the way they survive was interesting. The timeline of events from the fall of Fedra to the arrival of Joel and Ellie is well presented, but this time around, the issues are more present and severe. I'll give this episode a tacit 3 out of 4. Well, we are past the halfway mark officially. I'm still pretty interested in how the rest of the series will be executed. Until then, see you in the next video. Peace.